Pungyo's Andy on location here. We're going to be testing out obviously the two different devices. I've got this abomination in front of me that I picked up. You can check out the video in the cards or down below in my video recommendations. This is from SmallRig. It's a case for the iPhone 12 Pro Max. I've got here this little connector that's going to give you, the double view. And so we're going to go ahead and test a myriad of different ways that these devices differ or that they're similar to, notwithstanding basically shooting in all conditions that I can think of. So with that said, let's go ahead and jump right into this. I'm going to be shooting in 4K and then down-resing it everything into 1080p because that's what I originally shot in. I'm not going to do any kind of post-production. I'm not going to do any kind of tuning, contrast. I'm not going to do any of that. It's just going to hit record at 4K, 30, 60, 120, whatever the different features are, and I'll have them down below here notated. Now we're going to go ahead and switch over to video. I'm just going to tap video on both of them. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and again put it on the wide lens, the 1X, and we're just going to take some video. We're going to be focusing on the stabilization. We're going to be focusing on any screen tearing, and again, this is on 4K, 30 frames a second for both of them. Alrighty, I've hit record, and we're just going to go walk around. I'm going to try to keep as stable as I can. We're going to go in different light circumstances, and then I'm going to show you obviously the difference in the mics. So right now, you can hear my neighbor's dogs barking. This is on the Samsung microphone. Stabilization on the iPhone is superb. At least on the camera that I can see here, the low light is much better. I'm getting a lot more, I guess, contrast in that fence as opposed to the Samsung. The Samsung seems like it's focusing on the light that's coming in between the fence, and it's making the fence a little bit darker. But that could just be the true color here. Getting closer up here, videoing here, this, these little hooks. You're getting good detail as I move it about. I still feel like the Samsung is a little less stable, even though it does have the optical image stabilization. It's not like the sensor stabilization of the iPhone. The Samsung Sky, though, however, looks so rich. The contrast between the house roof and onto the sky is so much richer. I think it's not a bad experience here. Now shoot into the light and see how it looks. Walking with that sunlight, aiming it up in the sky. Seems fine to me. Now we're gonna come down here to the shadows of the tree. The ice here, you should see some sparkling from the sun as it bounces off the snow and the ice. And as I transition back and forth, the Samsung just isn't keeping up with the stability of the iPhone. That is quite interesting here. The iPhone did just jitter there as I stepped uncomfortably, uncontrollably around. We're gonna go and zoom in and try to get a little more macro on this. You can see here on the Samsung, I feel like it's keeping more true to color there. Whereas the iPhone, it is giving you a good depth of field as the fence is being blurred, but it is sharpening the image a little bit. As you look at the sky, again, the sky color is so much richer on the Samsung. Pointing up as we get higher up, you're able to see the stabilization is fantastic on the iPhone. On these now, the stabilization is so good on the iPhone until it gets to that Tele, and I need to fix this a little bit. There we go. Samsung is a little bit more reasonable here. On that 3X, when we turn like that, it kind of makes me a little nauseous. As we walk here and moving into the lower light behind my house, the stabilization just isn't as good on that Samsung. That is a little disappointing. The iPhone, again, it's having the contrast and brightness a little bit more, whereas the Samsung, because it's punched in a little bit more, it is focusing on the light of the house in the back more than actually the detail of the fence. You can tell that as it's transitioning and doing that auto adjusting of the aperture, it's not as clean on the Samsung. We're gonna move up the house now to get you the difference here. Still, I feel like the Samsung's struggling. I mean, even with this handheld stabilizer, I feel like the iPhone is just doing such a better job. Again, there is a difference in the magnification and zoom of these lenses. The Samsung is the 3.0, the iPhone is a 2.5, so there is that difference, but both of them are that Tele lens that they are touting. Now, as we zoom into this tree, you're noticing that you are getting the good depth of field as it's trying to grab focus on the main subject. The iPhone, I feel like, is doing a little bit better now. It's starting to focus on the fence here. Let's show you some shots of my family. There's my wife and my children, and we're gonna walk up to them. The iPhone is keeping, as best it can, stabilization, but that Samsung is just wobbling. I wonder if it's something within the software that it can fix. But I'm getting some non-stable footage here. Let's now get you a little bit more of a contrasty circumstance as I walk. The iPhone is struggling there, same with the Samsung. Let's go ahead and stabilize it, and now at this low light situation, the Samsung is just, look at that. You can hardly even see the tree on the Samsung. On the iPhone, it's getting good clarity and richness. Once we transition to the sky, then the tree blows out. As we hit the sun, it becomes dark. But I think it's still, these are, really good situations that you'll be in when you're trying to film and whatnot. Let's get a little more odd looking subject here. You got squirt gun and rocks and ice and snow. Moving over to the grass, it's a little shaky on that Samsung, but on the iPhone you've got some pretty good stabilization. Poor job stabilizing this ultra wide. So we're gonna move back again to the back of my fence, saying hello to our neighbor's dogs. And I feel like the Samsung's doing a way better job stabilizing that wide. I mean, if you notice, it kind of jittered with the iPhone, walking back and forth. Now I'm backing up. It's still maintaining, again, that good contrast that you're looking for in a low light situation, especially when you've got, sky above it that's brighter than your subject that you're shooting. With the Samsung, I feel like it's doing a great job stabilizing. Okay, so as we go up the house, you're getting a little bit wider shot again on the iPhone because it's a 0.5x. It's going to be probably a 14 millimeter as opposed to a 16. But the Samsung's doing a great job. It's making those tones super rich in the sky. I think it's making it much lighter and brighter blue than the iPhone. We're going to walk back into the sun and see how it does as it adjusts focus and aperture and whatnot. I think the iPhone's doing much better. You can tell that the darks of that patio pergola were much darker than they were on the iPhone. The iPhone was able to keep the grass color in a good, it not blowing it out with the exposure. But as we come to this tree here, same kind of a thing. I feel like the low light for the iPhone is just better. It's darker on the Samsung, and I don't know if that's just like the built-in adjustment photo computation that it does, but I mean, I don't know what else to say. I'm not trying to be an Apple fanboy here. I've had Samsung my whole life, but I mean, make no mistake, I think it's just a better experience. Now we're going to use the ultra wide by getting closer to a few subjects here to see what kind of focus it does. The ultra wide zoomed in, see what kind of texture we can get on this fence as it peels and it's rotting. I think it makes for an interesting experience here. We're gonna go ahead and zoom up on this nail and this paint that's kind of chipping away, and it seems like it's able to pull focus just fine there. And then we're gonna kind of circle back to the back of my home. Okay, so now I want to demonstrate the stability and the fidelity of the camera as it switches from each lens. This is one thing that I've been super negative to iPhone about, is because it jumps between cameras. With the Samsung, at least the Samsung I had, the 10, it did better. So let's see how it does comparatively. We're going to put them both on the ultra wide, and from the Samsung we're going to start and zoom in. It only gives us, again, all the way up to 20x, and it kind of hiccups, but I can't do it all in one go like I can on the iPhone. But let's slowly go from the 0.5. You can see now it kind of hiccups. As soon as we hit the 3x, it's a little more subtle. It hiccups. Then as we get to the 10x, you can see it kind of hiccups from the 9 to 10, and then it gets all the way to 20x, which is kind of interesting. And you can get somewhat of a focus there as it comes back. But why don't we go all the way to 20x, and then we'll hit the wide and see what it does. So you can see it kind of hiccups 3 times. On the iPhone, let's do the iPhone zoom. It seems like it's a little bit better. A little bit smoother. This beam, we're only going to 7x. But you see that, like when I go fast, it goes, even at like 7x, in some circumstances, the wide is going to be digitally zooming in, and then it's going to hit the Tele. And it's going to be slow. So let's slow that down, go from the 1. That was a pretty good transition. Then to the Tele, no good, and so on. So let's go ahead then and let's zoom all the way up and go back to wide. I mean, that's pretty clean. That's pretty clean, I'd say. Alrighty, so there's a couple more features on the video side here. We're gonna do the slow-mo on each one of them. The Samsung has a slow-mo, the iPhone has a slow-mo, Samsung has an ultra slow-mo, and again, this is gonna be putting these pictures at 120 frames a second. It's gonna take the video at 1080p. So let's go ahead and try both of these out. It looks like on the Samsung, the slow-mo only allows you wide lens. You're not able to switch between the lenses, and it's a static shot. You can't zoom on this mode, whereas on the iPhone, you've got the ability to do, the 120, 1080p on all lenses, which is great. I think that's going to be a big deal for those action sports people. Let's go ahead now and see what stabilization is like on the 1080p 120 frames a second. Again, outputted at 30 frames a second. So you tell me what it looks like as far as the slow motion. Doherty, do you want to do something that's interesting? Why don't you jump up in the air?
I found sushis.
With your arms, like flail your arms.
Like what?
Just go, wow, like a jumping jack. Okay, let me zoom back a little bit. Why don't you kick some snow in the air? Okay, ready? Hold on. Let me get close. Okay, you're gonna kick not at me, you're gonna kick out.
So much snow just goes.
Kick right here. Kick right there. Yeah, just so that gets you a really cool look there as both videos are being slow-mo to 120 frames a second. That gets you a really cool look there as both videos are being slow-mo to 120 frames a second. That's like an 8x slow-mo, and you can see each individual ice kernel kind of flying as it's kicked out. I didn't have a good position for both of them because, again, they're offset by a little bit of a space, but I think both of them do a great job. both of them aren't really good in low light. Both of them I feel like are punched in. Nonetheless, I think it's better with the iPhone because you can zoom in using the 2x, 2.5x, or the wide 0.5 and zoom up. So go ahead and do that kick again, Doherty, if you don't mind. We're gonna get real close with the iPhone. Kick your foot kick right there. At the 20 frames a second, and then one more. We're going to get it at the 2.5x. Go ahead and kick right here. Okay. So the iPhone has a time-lapse function which is geared towards setting your phone down on a tripod and letting the sun go by. On the Samsung, it's actually got a hyperlapse. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to do a lap kind of around the house. We're going to put them on both on the wide lens here, and then we're just going to do it. And I think, honestly, before I even get into it, I think the Samsung is going to do much better, as it always has. The iPhone has never had a good time lapse, but let's go ahead and show those features off right now. Donnie, if you want to follow me, you can. It looks like the stabilization is pretty good on the Samsung. I mean, it kind of looks like it's bobbling a lot. That's just because of the way I have the camera, but it seems like it punches in as well a lot from the viewfinder. But I mean, that's a viewable hyperlapse. I think it's not a bad idea. The iPhone, on the other hand, it sped it too much. The auto function of it just made it way too fast, and you can't comprehend all of the stuff. But on the all right, the Samsung shot a 17-second hyperlapse. The iPhone shot a 12-second hyperlapse stuff. But on the hyperlapse in the iPhone, you can actually modify it manually and tell it what you want. So take it with a grain of salt. I liked the Samsung better because it slowed it down. It's not as fast. And ideally for hyperlapses, you want to have between like a 4 to 5 times as fast of a shot there. With that said, let's go ahead and move over to video. All right, so like I said, I'm going to be shooting both of them in 4K 30 and then down-resing them. I don't have a good way to be able to give you an equal shot because of the difference between the camera lenses, but just on the offset here, it looks like my face is much more rich on the iPhone, which I don't like. It's adding this beautification to my face that I don't really want, whereas on the Samsung, I feel like I've got more of a natural look. I've got this really harsh light from the sun, making shadows and whatnot, and I feel like it's giving me a better true to my skin tone. With that said, videoing here, both of them are not uber stabilized. I mean, when you're doing a vlog, I'm holding this out arm's length, and I feel like the iPhone has, a better true feel, meaning that it's not as punched in, whereas the Samsung, I feel like I'm punched in, and that's because the Samsung is doing a better job stabilizing. The iPhone has a terrible stabilization for that front facing. You can see it shakes so much on the iPhone, whereas the Samsung is not shaking as much. It's giving you a better look here. I'm walking behind my house again, like I typically do, and the iPhone is giving me, in this lower light or this shadowed circumstance, I've got richer tones here in my face, more reds. On the Samsung, I've got more of a flat profile. Looking back here at the sky, I feel like the iPhone now is kind of punching the saturation in the sky more than the iPhone is, or the Samsung is. Now we're walking into the sun, where the lens is obviously into the sun, and it's getting the shot that you can see. I feel like the iPhone's doing a better job of getting the lights in my face, whereas the Samsung, it seems to be pretty dark. There is actually a really cool feature here on the Samsung that I'm glad they brought back. It's called the director's view. When I was first vlogging back in 2015, there was this function on the Samsung, I think it was the 8 that I had, where you could basically, do a picture-on-picture view of both cameras. You do lose out on some of the ability to zoom on the director's view, but I've always liked being able to like capture your kids and then also capture the director themselves who's goofing around with the kids. It's something that I'm glad that they brought back, that I'm looking forward to in the future. As far as the director's view, you've got 3 different options here. You can go to the 3x Tele to zoom in. You can do the wide and then the ultra wide right in camera as you're filming. And I think that's cool. You should be able to swap them back. You can move the thumbnail here, but I don't think in the camera you can switch back and forth. It doesn't appear you can. And there's my... Samsung has this single take feature where your phone automatically captures the best moments within that shot. And so we're going to go ahead and just demonstrate that right now. I'm just going to hit the single take button, and it's going to catch meaningful moments as I move closer to the camera and go back, and I'm going to see what it ends up doing here. I'm not doing anything on the iPhone. It seems like it's having a hard time stabilizing per se, but I mean, this is going to be just kind of how you would generally use this single take. So let's review what the single take did. Okay, I guess this is the single take. Okay, so it pulled, hold on, it pulled this picture, it pulled a GIF. Huh. I'm not sure what it's doing here, but it's creating a meaningful... Oh wow, it's got all these different options here. You got a 7-second kind of recap of what happened. You've got an extra filter there. When I started backing up, it took a picture. It created this chroma kind of feel. It made a GIF. As I moved about, it added a filter to this one, giving you kind of like an old vintage look. Here's a lower light situation. Here's a video of me walking up to the camera and then coming back. Alright, Pungos, well, that's about it. As many of the features on the camera that I wanted to focus on. Again, for me, the camera is the main thing. All the other are ancillary. With that said, hit that like button, subscribe if you want to see more, and with any vlog, signing out.